My ex-husband, 34, male and I, 34 female, lost our daughter 5 years ago, and now we sleep together but can't talk about it. How do I make sense of this? Posted May 24th, 2026. My ex-husband. I had our daughter when we were just 22 and ended up getting married because of the pregnancy. I don't know if we would have gotten married otherwise, but honestly, none of that mattered once our daughter was born. We both loved her so much, and both talked about how we felt like she must have happened for a reason. I loved him too, and we were happy at one point. Our daughter died in an accident when she was 7 years old. That was 5 years ago. There wasn't really one single person to blame. You want somebody to blame in a situation like this. It feels like it'd be easier to have somebody to direct all your anger to. Nobody caused what happened, but we both blame ourselves, and we also ended up blaming each other. What should we have done differently? Our relationship was never the same after she died. We separated after about a year and were divorced within 2 years of her death. At the time, I blamed him for wanting to run away from everything. He blamed me for the same thing. Now I realize that neither of us could face it at the time, and we were both trying to run away, but in different ways. I ended up spending time in a psychiatric hospital because I eventually had a mental breakdown and couldn't function. I remember actually looking up what a mental breakdown felt like and realizing I couldn't function anymore. He started drinking heavily. Neither of us has been in a real relationship since. I tried dating once and realized I wasn't ready. He avoids relationships completely. We've probably been in touch a total of 2 times in the past 3 years. My mom was sick for about a year and died a few months ago. I was very surprised by who didn't show and who did. My best friend didn't come. Family members who I thought had loved my mom couldn't bother to travel from where they live. And the people who did come seemed afraid to talk to me, to mention my mom, even though we were literally there because of her. It was very enlightening. My ex-husband was one of the people who I was surprised to see. He was the first person to actually hug me and to genuinely tell me how sorry he was. He was one of the only people who actually talked about my mom to me. He even mentioned how he forgot how much I looked just like my mom when she was younger, and how our daughter looked just like a younger me. I couldn't believe he even said our daughter's name, and I think by the look on his face he was kind of surprised too. I couldn't wait to get out of there. I still can't handle death. My aunt kept trying to get me to take all of the flower arrangements, seemingly unable to understand why I didn't want to fill my home with funeral flowers that smelled like death. He took all the flowers and put them in his trunk. He offered to drive me home because I couldn't even concentrate enough to get my key into my car door. He stopped along the way and tossed all the flowers out of the trunk. We ended up sleeping together at my house. It just happened. I think I desperately just needed to feel close to somebody. We really didn't talk about it or during it or even after it. It literally just seemed to happen, and that was it. The most that was said was him asking me if I was on birth control afterwards, which I wasn't, and me telling him I'd go get Plan B. I did go get Plan B for the first time in my entire life. This post isn't about my being pregnant. Since then, we've continued seeing each other on and off and sleeping together. That's all we do. We aren't really in communication in between. There's no texting or checking in or anything. There's very little conversation, even when we're together. Whatever we talk about, it's all surface-level stuff like how work's been and stuff like that. We still can't really talk about what happened in any meaningful way. If one of us tries, the other shuts down. It's like neither of us can stay in that emotional space for long without everything falling apart. I'm usually the one who wants to talk or understand what this is, but he seems to avoid it now. I still can't look at pictures of her for more than a few seconds without feeling like I can't breathe. It feels like we've both just locked that part of our lives away. But I really do miss him. I miss being with him. Like really being with him. But when we're together, it's hard to ignore what's missing. I don't know what this is between us anymore. I just know I don't understand it. and I don't know if I should be trying to step away from it. How do you even begin to make sense of a relationship dynamic like this after a loss, where there's still connection, but any attempt to talk about it immediately shuts everything down? Comment. I am so deeply sorry for your loss. I have no words of advice, but I would love to hear about your precious child. What was she like? OP. She had big blue eyes and dark blonde hair. She was always the shortest one in her class. She loved school and was really smart. She was really excited to be starting the second grade soon. She loved animals and wanted to be a vet for big animals like horses and cows when she grew up. She could sit and read books or draw for hours. Her favorite things to play were dress up and Barbies, but she spent most of the time just rearranging her Barbie house over and over until it was perfect. She also loved playing in the dirt outside and digging for bugs. She was particularly fond of worms. She was really funny and loved making people laugh, and she had a really loud, unmistakable laugh herself. She was what my entire world revolved around. I always used to say when she was born, she became my heart. My heart lived outside my body. She died, and it's like my heart just stopped. That's exactly how it felt. But I want to thank you for asking about her. I cried reading your comment because I realized it's been a really long time since anyone asked about her. People normally don't ask because they're afraid to hurt me, and I can completely understand that because I would have probably done the same if roles were reversed. Comment 2. You had inpatient psychiatric care, but did you go to grief counseling? Sounds like both of you needed grief counseling. Loss of a child often destroys. OP. I was forced to go to grief counseling as part of my treatment. I did not find it very helpful. I don't know if I just wasn't receptive to it and wouldn't let it help me. I have not sought any further grief counseling since then. She was our only child. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if we had other children, and if that would have kept us together or prevented me from completely falling apart. But I suppose it's probably going to happen inevitably to most people who go through something like just a matter or when. I convinced myself it was for the best, that we didn't have other kids because I probably wouldn't have been able to be a very good mother in the aftermath of her death. She wanted to be a big sister. She constantly begged for a baby sister or brother. It was the next year, when she would have been 8 and I was 30, that we had planned to try to have another baby. But she didn't know that because I didn't want to tell her and get her hopes up in case it never came to be for whatever reason. I'm so sorry that I never gave that to her, because she wanted it more than anything. She asked Santa for it every year. It was her biggest wish. Comment. I'm happy that your daughter got to experience it, even if it was for a tragically and unfairly short amount of time. OP. Yeah. It's even gotten to the point that when I meet new people, I don't even tell them about my daughter. I feel guilty like I'm hiding her away. But I got so tired of the pity and the way other women with children would suddenly stop talking about their kids when they realized I was around. I started a new job, and I keep myself very closed off now. I used to be an open, warm person, but now I just wall off a lot of my experiences and say, I just don't have kids. Comment. Read Comfort by Ann Hood about her random loss of her 5-year-old daughter and how she grieved. Your ex is literally the only other person in the world who understands your loss. Not of your mother, grieving though that be, but what it brings up if the unhealed wounds of your daughter. Sometimes we take comfort in our bodies because our minds refuse to say aloud what we then have to acknowledge. You seem to carry your grief in your body, the smell of the flowers, the sound of her name, etc. It is trauma and bereavement. And you need to go to therapy to work through the trauma so you can grieve and love and remember your precious child. OP. While losing my mom is hard, there are so many more people who understand that pain. It's harder for people to relate to losing a child, and far more uncomfortable for anyone, including myself, to talk about. But I just mentioned in another comment that right now we aren't really saying much at all, at least not verbally. I'm beginning to understand that I think there are things being said, just not verbally. Some things don't need spoken out loud to be understood. I think that's sort of where we're at right now. I do feel a sense of understanding just being with him. Comment 4. There are couples that get back together after time apart. My favorite aunt married and divorced and then married her husband, as an aside, after a tragedy involving a child. OP. Well, we're barely talking right now, so I don't know about that. It's not like we're intentionally not talking, like giving the silent treatment sort of thing. I think part of it may just be that there's a lot we don't need to verbally say right now. There's maybe a lot understood without having to say it. But then I know there's also things that we just don't want to hear the other say either. We won't let the other person say. Comment 5. Op. Why didn't you go to couples counseling or IC after this? Since time has passed, have you thought of asking him to go to couples counseling? OP. I don't know. In the immediate aftermath, I felt like nothing could help me. No amount of professional help would take away how much pain I felt, or stop me from blaming myself or change what happened. Part of me didn't want to get over it, I think. It was over 2 years after it happened that I got help. Once I was in such a mentally bad place I couldn't function anymore. By then, we were already divorced. Update 30 days later. It's been about a month since I last posted. We're still sleeping together, but it's not just that anymore. We've slowly started spending more actual time together. He came to a Memorial Day get-together my family had. I went out to eat with him and his siblings. We've gone out to dinner a few times and had to sit across from each other and talk. Never anything too heavy, but still real conversation. We're at each other's homes more often now, and it's not just show up, have sex, leave. We see each other multiple times a week now, and I'm actually kind of sad when it's a day when I know I'm just going home and going to be alone. We're also planning to go away together over the July 4th weekend. He made the suggestion because the dates will include the anniversary of our daughter's death. We haven't been in each other's presence or even talked to each other on that day since the first anniversary. Usually I spend several days heavily medicated, legally prescribed, to get through it without having to think or feel too much. There are a lot of triggers for me around that time of year, so I just want to hide away. I guess in a way we're running away from it, but I'm planning to not spend the entire time being a drugged-out zombie, so I see it as an improvement. The main goal is to get away from so many of the things that remind me of it. I'll have my meds with me just in case, though. I'm not brave enough to leave them at home. We've made a promise to try to enjoy ourselves, but it's still going to be very hard for me. He's also started therapy. His first time ever. It's very new, just an initial consultation and one real session, but it's something he refused for years before this. He says nothing major has happened yet, but that just taking the step has already made him feel some relief. I think he made the decision after he impulsively just blurted out during sex that we should have another baby. I just completely froze, and he said we could love another child and maybe not feel such a big hole in our lives. The craziest part is that I didn't shut it down, and having another baby isn't something I'd ever rationally do in a moment like that, but it made me feel so happy momentarily, and we just said one time, and if it happened, then it was meant to be. Luckily, I got my period a week and a half later, and he announced he had a therapy appointment. I'm not in therapy right now, but I've been before. I probably should go back. I just haven't yet. I don't really know what this means for us. It feels like we're no longer in the exact same place we were before. But I also don't know what direction this is actually moving in. There's no real label for it. But I don't know how long it can go on like this before it's something. I don't feel like I'm just spending time with him or sleeping with him strictly to comfort myself or to deal with any sort of emotions anymore. That's definitely what it was several months ago when it started. I feel like I'm really falling in love with him again and I want to feel things again. I'm just scared to say it out loud. Comment. It sounds like there's still a lot of love and grief tangled together here, which makes sense given what you both went through. I'd try to have one gentle, sober conversation before the trip, even if it starts with, I don't know what this is, but it matters to me. OP. For a long time, being around him was like the biggest reminder of what was missing. When we were together, The hole that was there felt so much more obvious and inescapable. I still feel that sometimes, but I've also learned it's really weird to go from having this person you shared a life with and had all of these shared memories with just no longer part of your life. I truly believe we made a very rash decision to separate, and we just weren't in our right minds, and we didn't know how to handle everything emotionally. For me, it was just running away, because I didn't want to deal with any of the bad feelings. If I could have run away and started a new life somewhere under a totally new name, where nobody knew me or any of my history, I probably would have. The fact that you're having dinner, meeting family, planning trips, and missing each other on normal days tells me this stopped being just sex a while ago. OP. Yeah, and I think we both realize that, but for some reason, it's just too scary to say it's anything, and everyone wants to know what it is or what we are. I didn't even tell my family he was coming with me to that get-together. I'm not the type who was going to text people ahead to tell them or something. He was a part of my family once, and everyone loved him. So their surprise quickly turned to an intense interest in what was going on, and my nosy relatives won't leave it alone. We don't even really know. It just happened by accident. It's not like he came to my mom's funeral with the intention of sleeping with me the same day. And it's not like I'm telling people that happened in the first place. Comment. If he's up for solo therapy, could you ask him whether you could do some grief therapy together? Could you maybe say something like, you don't have the confidence to do it on your own and would like his support? I think if you guys stand a chance, you need to work through that first before leaping to another child. I do agree it could help the healing, but you could also end up feeling like you are replacing the child you've lost, and the relationship could break down again. Imagine if you do have another child, you'll have to explain to this child they have an older sibling who died. And if you can't talk to each other about how you'll navigate that, yet then now probably isn't the best time. OP. I don't know if I can do grief therapy. I've done it before, years ago when I was forced to do it, after I admitted myself to a mental health facility, after essentially having what people commonly refer to as a mental breakdown. I didn't enjoy it. For me, grief is just something that I'm walking through and have been walking through for years, but it gets lighter and lighter to carry. It's heavier some days than others, but I don't feel paralyzed or suffocated by it. I feel like I'm pretty well functioning these days. We're not trying to have another baby right now. It was a very spur-of-the-moment, impulsive thing, and we had both gone out and drank that night. We're not regularly sitting around getting drunk or anything. I had one cocktail, but I'm such a lightweight that I can barely stand up straight after one strong drink. We know that wouldn't be the right thing to do, and that would be a big burden to put on a baby. I do sometimes think maybe it could happen in the future. Previously, I silently told myself I would never have more kids no matter who I was with because 1, I'd probably be crazy overprotective to the detriment of the child, and 2, there's no way I could risk ever having to go through that sort of pain again. I mean the pain of losing a child, not childbirth. Comment. There's no one on this entire planet, which is populated by billions of humans, who love your daughter as much as the two of you do. That makes you uniquely suited to understand each other in a way no one else ever could. You loved him once. I'm not sure you ever stopped. Grief just obscured it for a bit. You have deep soul ties because of the original connection you shared and your strong love for your daughter. I think it's beautiful that you are reconnecting. A label isn't necessary right now. Just take it one day at a time. Wishing you the very best. OP. I couldn't even talk about my daughter for a long time because it was too painful. The two of us barely talked about her with each other before we divorced. Whenever one of us would want to, the other couldn't. Even when this started months ago, we didn't really go there. It wasn't until super recently that I brought her up to him. I mean, we say her name and stuff, but actually talking about specific memories is what was hard. I asked him if he remembered when she was born. Of course I knew he'd remember, but I was really surprised by the specific details he remembered. Some that I hadn't even thought of. It was 12 years ago after all. There are a lot of shared memories that only he and I share, and I hadn't really realized how lonely it was being the only one here by myself with certain memories. I can finally think about some of those things without being completely sad. Come on. This is the most tragic and beautiful update. I'm sure your daughter would be so relieved to see you back together. You clearly love and care about each so much, even if it started unexpectedly, and now starting again very unexpectedly. There is so much love there that, as a stranger, is obvious to me. By his actions, and the way you write about him. I'm really rooting for you. OP, thank you, this is a really sweet comment. My mind has really been stuck on how it all happened. I feel like my mom and my daughter got together and decided to intervene. I've thought about my mom's funeral many times since it happened, and as soon as I saw him, it wasn't like any sort of dread or extra sadness or anything. It was like a, oh, thank God he's here sort of feeling for me. It was like the one person I didn't know I needed to be there to get me through that day. I never even considered that he'd be there. Wasn't on my radar to be expecting him at all. If this story added a little spark to your day, hit like and subscribe to Spill the Storyline so you're always here for the next beautifully messy moment.